After 10 years of marriage, my wife said, "You'll never be her real dad, stop pretending." I didn't respond. The next morning, I heard them both laughing, her and my stepdaughter. I just packed my bags, sold the house, and left a note. "You're right, I'm not her real dad, and you're not my real family." It's funny how 10 years of your life can be erased with a single sentence. 10 years of packing lunches, helping with homework, going to parent-teacher conferences, and teaching a kid how to ride a bike. All of it, gone in a puff of smoke. It happened last Tuesday. My wife, Karen, and I were having a small disagreement over our stepdaughter, Ashley. She's 17 and wanted to go to a weekend party 3 hours away. I said no. It was a school weekend, and I didn't know the parents. It was a normal dad thing to say. Karen didn't see it that way. She got this cold, hard look in her eyes, a look I'd been seeing more and more often. We were standing in the kitchen, the same kitchen I'd remodeled with my own hands 3 years ago. She crossed her arms and just said it, her voice dripping with a decade of resentment I hadn't fully understood until that moment. "You'll never be her real dad. Stop pretending." I didn't respond. I didn't yell. I didn't say a word. I just felt something inside me go quiet. It was like a switch being flipped off. The part of me that tried, the part that cared, the part that saw us as a family, it just shut down. I had met Karen when Ashley was 7. Her biological dad was a deadbeat who hadn't been in the picture since she was a toddler. For 10 years, I was the only father she had ever known. I wasn't pretending. I was just being a dad. I turned around, walked out of the kitchen, and went into my workshop in the garage. I stayed out there for hours, just organizing screws and cleaning tools, letting the silence sink in. Karen didn't come looking for me. When I finally went inside late that night, she was asleep in our bed. I slept on the couch. The next morning, I woke up early to the sound of voices from the kitchen. It was Karen and Ashley, and they were laughing. It wasn't just a chuckle. It was loud, mocking laughter. I crept to the hallway and listened. "I can't believe you finally said it to him," Ashley said, her voice filled with a kind of cruel glee that was new to me. "His face, Mom, it was priceless." "Well, it's the truth," Karen said, and then she laughed again. "He needed to hear it, all his little rules and his lectures, acting like he has some right. He's just the guy who pays the bills." That was it. That was the final nail. It wasn't just Karen, it was both of them. 10 years of my life, my love, my money, and my effort, and all I was to them was a joke. A wallet. A guy pretending to be something he wasn't. I walked back to the living room, my movements slow and deliberate. The quiet inside me had turned into a strange kind of calm. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. I went upstairs to our bedroom, found 2 of my old duffel bags, and started packing. I took my clothes, my toiletries, the pictures of my parents from my nightstand. I left everything else. I left the pictures of me and Ashley at her first soccer game. I left the coffee mug she gave me for Father's Day that said, "World's Best Bonus Dad." It all felt like a lie now. While I was packing, I made a phone call. I called a realtor, a guy named Tom who I'd done some work for a few years back. I told him I needed to sell my house, and I needed to do it fast. He was surprised but said he could have the paperwork ready by the afternoon and a for sale sign in the yard by the morning. I told him that was perfect. The house was in my name. I had bought it and paid off half the mortgage before I even met Karen. My lawyer had insisted on a prenup, a document Karen had called an insult at the time but signed anyway. It clearly stated the house was my premarital property. She was about to find out how important that piece of paper was. I finished packing and carried my bags downstairs. The house was quiet. They had left for school and work. I walked into the kitchen and grabbed a notepad from the junk drawer. I wrote down 7 words. "You're right. I'm not her real dad, and you're not my real family." I left the note on the kitchen counter, right where they'd been laughing about me an hour earlier. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. I drove to my office, a small space I rented for my contracting business, and just sat in the parking lot for a while. Then I got to work. I called my lawyer and told him what was happening. He just said, "Good, it's about time." I called my bank and had my paycheck rerouted to a new private account. I moved my personal savings, every penny I had earned before the marriage, into that same account. I left the joint account with enough money to cover the bills for 1 month. After that, it was on her. That afternoon, I met the realtor and signed the listing agreement. He promised to put the sign up the next morning before they woke up. For the first time in 10 years, I felt a sense of freedom. I wasn't a pretend dad anymore. I wasn't a wallet. I was just me. And I was starting over. I spent that night on the couch at my friend Mark's place. The first wave of texts started around 4 in the afternoon, when Ashley would have gotten home from school. It was a picture of the note with the simple question, "What is this?" I didn't respond. An hour later, Karen started calling. I let it go to voicemail. She left 7 messages in a row. The first one was angry. "Call me right now. This isn't funny." The next few were confused. "Where are you? Are you trying to scare us?" The last ones were pure panic. "Okay, you've made your point. Just come home and we can talk about this. This is crazy. You can't just leave." The next morning, the real storm hit. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. It was Karen, and she was screaming, "There is a for sale sign in our front yard." "Our yard, John? What did you do?" I answered the phone, my voice completely calm. "It's not our yard, Karen. It's my yard, and I'm selling my house." "You can't do that," she shrieked. "I live here. Ashley lives here. This is our home." "No," I said, "it's my home. You were just living in it. And now I'm selling it. The realtor says the market is hot, so you should probably start looking for a new place to live. You've got about 30 days, maybe 60 if you're lucky." I could hear her sputtering, trying to form words. "My lawyer will destroy you for this. You can't just kick us out." "I suggest you have your lawyer look at our prenup," I said. "Specifically the part about premarital assets. The house is mine, Karen. The money I made before we got married is mine. The business I built is mine. You are entitled to half of what we made together, which, after your spending habits, isn't a whole lot. Goodbye." I hung up and blocked her number. Then I blocked Ashley's number. I knew this was just the beginning. The next escalation came from her mother, Eileen. She called me that afternoon, and I made the mistake of answering. She didn't even say hello. She just launched into a tirade about how I was a cruel, heartless monster for abandoning my family. "You have a daughter who loves you, John," she yelled. "No, Eileen, I don't," I said. "I have a stepdaughter who laughed with her mother about how I was just a guy who pays the bills. There's a difference. She's a child. She makes mistakes." "She's 17, I corrected her. "She's old enough to know what she's saying, and Karen is certainly old enough. For 10 years, I gave them everything. My time, my money, my love, and in return, I was told I was pretending. I'm done pretending." "You're throwing them out on the street," she cried. "I'm selling my property," I said. "What Karen does next is her problem. She has a good job, she can find an apartment. She's a grown woman. It's time she started acting like one." I hung up before she could respond. The entitlement of that family was breathtaking. They genuinely believed I was obligated to provide a home for 2 people who had openly mocked and disrespected me. A few days later, I got a formal-looking email. It was from a lawyer. Karen had moved fast. The email was full of legal threats. It demanded I immediately take the house off the market. It demanded I reinstate her access to our joint accounts. It demanded I pay for her legal fees and emotional distress. It was a work of fiction. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, who sent back a response a few hours later. His email was short and to the point. It included a copy of our signed prenup. It included a statement showing that the down payment and years of mortgage payments had come from my premarital accounts. It ended with a simple sentence: "Any further attempts to claim ownership of my client's separate property will be met with a countersuit for frivolous litigation." The legal threats stopped after that. The house got an offer within a week for over the asking price. The market really was hot. The closing was set for 45 days out. The clock was ticking for Karen and Ashley. The next person to reach out was Ashley. She sent me a message on social media. I almost deleted it without reading, but my curiosity got the better of me. It wasn't an apology, it was a list of demands. "Since you're selling the house, you owe me for my college fund," she wrote, "and you need to keep making my car payments. And my phone is on your family plan, so you can't kick me off that." I just stared at the message. After everything that had happened, after she had laughed at me and called me a bill payer, she still thought I owed her something. The nerve of it was almost impressive. I typed back a single response. Ashley, I am not your real dad. I am not responsible for your finances. You should talk to your mother about these things. That's what real families do. She replied with a string of insults, calling me a loser and a fake, saying she never liked me anyway. I didn't respond. I just took a screenshot of the conversation and sent it to Karen with the caption, "You've taught her well." Then I blocked Ashley on every platform. The final few weeks before the closing were a strange kind of quiet. I heard through a mutual friend that Karen was in a panic, trying to find an apartment that she could afford on her own salary. Apparently, she had been looking at places that were way out of her price range, still expecting the lifestyle I had provided. The reality of her new financial situation was hitting her hard. This mutual friend, Sarah, called me a few days before the closing. She sounded awkward. "Hey John, Karen's been calling me, freaking out," Sarah said. "She wanted me to ask you if you'd consider giving her some of the money from the house sale just to help her get on her feet." "Did she tell you why I'm selling the house?" I asked. "She said you two had a fight and you overreacted." I just laughed. "She told me I'm not Ashley's real dad and that I should stop pretending." Then I overheard her and Ashley laughing about how I'm just the guy who pays the bills. So I decided to stop paying the bills. "The prenup is clear, Sarah. The house is mine. She'll get her share of our marital assets and that's it. I'm not a bank." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Wow, she left that part out. I'm sorry, John. I won't bother you again." The day of the closing, my lawyer handled everything. I signed the papers in his office and the money was wired to my new private account. After my lawyer took his fees, I had him cut a check to Karen for her legal share of the marital assets. It was a respectable amount, enough for a down payment on a small condo or to cover rent for a few years. But it wasn't the lottery ticket she thought she was getting. It was a clean break. My lawyer sent her the check via courier, along with a final set of divorce papers. I didn't want to see her again. That night, I was at my new apartment, a small 2-bedroom place I was renting downtown. It was empty except for a mattress on the floor and a few boxes, but it was mine. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. It was Karen. She must have gotten a new phone. She wasn't yelling. Her voice was quiet, defeated. "I got the check," she said, "and the papers." "Okay," I said. "Is this really it, John?" she asked. 10 years. You're just throwing it all away over one stupid comment?" "It wasn't one comment, Karen," I said. "It was 10 years of you feeling that way and just not saying it. It was you and Ashley laughing at me. It was you thinking of me as a wallet. The comment didn't end our marriage. It just revealed that we never really had one." She started to cry. "What are we supposed to do? The apartments I can afford are tiny. Ashley is furious she has to go to a community college now. You've ruined our lives." "No," I said, and for the first time I felt a flash of anger. "You did. You had a man who loved your daughter as his own. You had a beautiful home. You had a partner who supported you. You had a family, and you threw it away because you thought you could do better. Now you get to find out if you were right." I hung up the phone and blocked the new number. I looked around my empty apartment. It wasn't much, but it was real. And it was all mine. The next chapter of this mess started about a month later. I got another call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but I was expecting a call from a supplier, so I picked it up. A man's voice, rough around the edges, asked if I was John. I said I was. "My name is Rick," he said. "I'm Ashley's father, her biological father. Karen called me last week. Sounds like I need to hear your side of the story." My first thought was that this was another trap. Karen, desperate, had tracked down the deadbeat dad to use as a weapon against me. I agreed to meet him, but on my terms. A public place, a diner downtown, the next morning. I wanted a witness, so I asked my friend Mark to sit at a nearby table, just in case. Rick was a long-haul trucker, just passing through town. He looked tired, but he looked me straight in the eye when he shook my hand. He told me Karen had called him out of the blue, crying, telling him I was an abusive monster who had thrown her and Ashley out on the street and was trying to leave them with nothing. He said he was on his way to confront me when he decided to do a little digging first. He found out I had a good reputation in town, that my business was solid. It didn't line up with the story she was telling. So I told him everything. I told him about the last 10 years. I told him about the comment and about overhearing them laughing in the kitchen. I showed him the screenshot of Ashley's text demanding a college fund and car payments. He just shook his head, looking disgusted. I was a deadbeat, he said, his voice low. I ran out on them, and I own that. I was a bad father. But I never pretended to be something I wasn't. What they did to you, after you stepped up and did the job I didn't, that's just cold. He told me he had no intention of getting back with Karen. He just wanted to see his daughter. He asked me what she was really like. I was honest. I told him she was smart, funny, and athletic, but that her mother and grandmother had filled her head with entitlement. I told him she was a good kid underneath it all, but she had been taught to see people for what they could give her. We talked for almost 2 hours. It was one of the strangest conversations of my life. At the end, he thanked me for being honest. He said he was going to see Ashley, but not to save her from me. He was going to give her a reality check that was long overdue. A week later, Rick called me again. He said his conversation with Ashley had been a disaster. He had tried to explain to her that the world didn't owe her anything, that she had disrespected the only father she had ever known, and that she needed to apologize. She had just screamed at him, called him a loser for abandoning her, and told him she didn't need another fake dad in her life. Karen's final, desperate move was an attack on my business. She found out the name of one of my biggest clients, a development company run by a sharp woman named Diana. Karen left a long, rambling voicemail on Diana's office phone, claiming I was emotionally unstable, going through a messy divorce, and that I couldn't be trusted to manage a project. Diana called me immediately. This was a serious problem. My reputation is everything in my line of work. I asked Diana if I could meet with her in person. I walked into her office, sat down, and laid out the facts. My ex-wife is unhappy with the terms of our prenup, I said. She is trying to damage my reputation to gain leverage. It will not affect the project. My personal life is my own, but I can assure you that my professional commitments are solid. Diana just nodded. I've been in this business a long time, John. I know a bitter ex when I hear one. Don't worry about it. Just keep up the good work. Karen's attempt to ruin my livelihood had failed. In fact, it had probably made my professional relationship with Diana stronger. The last I heard, Karen and Ashley are living in a small, 2-bedroom apartment across town. Karen had to get a second, part-time job to make ends meet. Ashley is working at a fast food restaurant to save money for community college. Rick, her real dad, sends her a little bit of money when he can, but he told me he attaches a note to every payment that says, "This is what happens when you take good people for granted." I saw Karen once a few months ago at the grocery store. She was with some new guy who looked like he was already tired of her. She saw me, and for a second I thought she was going to say something. But I just gave her a polite nod, turned my cart, and walked down the next aisle. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel anything at all. I was just a guy buying groceries, and she was just a stranger. Life settled into a new normal after that. I focused on my business, started working out again, and spent weekends hiking with my dog. The peace was incredible. I hadn't realized how much low-grade stress I had been living with for 10 years until it was gone. The constant need to manage Karen's moods, to try and connect with a stepdaughter who saw me as an obstacle, the endless judgment from her mother, it was like a background noise I had gotten so used to, I didn't even hear it anymore. Now, all I heard was silence. About 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a call at my office. My assistant said there was a man named Dave on the line who needed to speak with me about a personal matter related to Karen. The name didn't register at first, and then it hit me. That was the name of the guy I'd seen her with at the grocery store. My first instinct was to tell my assistant to hang up. I didn't want any more drama, but curiosity won. I told her to put him through. His voice was tense. "John? My name is Dave. I know this is a weird call. I got your business number from a contractor who worked on your old house. I'm the guy. Well, I'm Karen's boyfriend." "Okay," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Look, man, I'm not trying to start anything," he said, his voice dropping. I feel like I'm going crazy, and I have a feeling you're the only person on the planet who would understand. Can I buy you a beer? 5 minutes of your time? That's all I'm asking." There was a desperation in his voice that I recognized. It was the sound of a reasonable man trying to make sense of an unreasonable situation. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a quiet bar on the other side of town later that week. Dave looked exactly like I remembered from the grocery store. Tired. He told me he'd met Karen through a dating app about 4 months after I had left. He said she was charming at first. She told him a sob story about her evil ex-husband who had abandoned her and her daughter, leaving them with nothing after she had dedicated her life to him. Dave, being a decent guy who had been through a divorce himself, felt for her. He said the first few months were good. Then the red flags started popping up. It started with money. She was always complaining about being broke, yet she was constantly buying new clothes, getting her hair done at expensive salons. He started lending her money, first small amounts, then bigger ones. He paid for a new set of tires for her car. He covered her rent for a month when she claimed her hours got cut at work. Then came her family. He said her mother, Eileen, was a nightmare. She was always at their apartment, criticizing him, making passive-aggressive comments about his job, and telling Karen she deserved better. Ashley, he said, treated him like he was invisible unless she wanted something. He'd given her hundreds of dollars for concert tickets, new shoes, and nights out with her friends. "It's like they see me as a walking ATM," he said, shaking his head. "And if I say no, or even hesitate, Karen accuses me of not caring. She says I'm being just like you." I just took a sip of my beer. "Sounds familiar." "The final straw was last week," he continued. "I came home and there was a letter on the table from a credit card company. It was addressed to her, but it was open. I guess she forgot to hide it. She had opened a card in my name as an authorized user without telling me. It was maxed out. Almost $10,000 in debt. Clothes, spa days, dinners with her mother. I confronted her, and she didn't even apologize. She said I was overreacting, that she was going to pay it back. But I know she has no way to do that." He looked me straight in the eye. "She told me you were the monster." But listening to her talk, the way she twists things, I realized the story probably wasn't that simple. So I did some digging. I talked to that mutual friend, Sarah. She told me the real story, about the prenup, about what you overheard them saying in the kitchen. I just nodded. I didn't need to add anything. He had found the truth on his own. "So I'm asking you," Dave said, "am I crazy? Or is this just who she is?" "That's who she is," I confirmed. "And that's who her mother taught her to be. And that's who Ashley is becoming. They see men as a resource. When one runs dry, they move on to the next. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of it." He looked relieved, like a man who had just been told his diagnosis wasn't all in his head. "What did you do?" he asked. "How did you get out?" "I just stopped," I said. "I stopped paying. I stopped pretending. I stopped caring what they thought of me. The second you cut off the money, you'll see their true colors. But you have to be ready for the war that follows. They will try to destroy your reputation. They will call you a monster to anyone who will listen. You just have to be prepared for it." We finished our beers and shook hands. He thanked me again. I told him to be careful. As I walked out of the bar, I felt a strange sense of pity. Not for Karen, but for him. He was at the beginning of a messy, ugly road that I had just finished traveling. That conversation was the real end for me. It confirmed that my decision wasn't an overreaction. It was a survival instinct. Karen hadn't changed, and she never would. She was just looking for a new host. A few months after that, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was from Ashley. It was long, and it wasn't a demand. It was the closest thing to an apology I think she was capable of writing. She told me that Dave had left her mom. He had apparently taken my advice, documented everything, and ended it cleanly. He had even threatened to press charges for the credit card fraud, which made Karen back down immediately. Ashley said that seeing her mom go through the exact same cycle with another man had been an eye-opener. She said that her real dad, Rick, had been talking to her, making her face some hard truths. "I was a brat," she wrote. "You were good to me and I treated you like dirt because my mom and grandma told me I could. I'm sorry. I know it's too late, but I just wanted to say it. I thought about it for a long time before I replied. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part of me remembered the 7-year-old girl who had been so excited to show me her report card. I texted back, "I appreciate that, Ashley. I wish you the best." It was all that needed to be said. Life is quiet now. I sold my business last year to a larger company and retired early. I bought a small house on a few acres of land out in the country. My dog is old now, but he loves the space. I fish and I work in my wood shop. I see my friend Mark on the weekends. It's a simple life, but it's real. The drama is gone. Building my own life, on my own terms, was the only project that ever really mattered. I poured a whiskey and enjoyed the silence.